Hello and welcome to the Vocal Sound Healing Podcast. My name is Alexandra Rigazzi-Tarling. I am a vocal sound healing practitioner and trainer. I'm a vocal coach and technician, and I've been working with voice for well over 25 years and working in the world of healing voice for around the last 15 years and training vocal sound healing practitioners for the last 10 years. And I bring all of that experience and all things healing voice sound healing to this podcast for discussion. So thank you for being here with me and joining with me today. And we are at episode 16, and I've called this Vocal Toning and the Healing Resonance of Vowels. So, as those of you know that listen to this podcast regularly, I draw on the things from my working week, the people that I meet, the topics that I cover, and some weeks topics just seem to be fully present. And it doesn't matter if I'm working in the vocal coaching side of things, the healing voice, authentic voice side of things, or working over somebody's body with my voice. It doesn't matter where I am. Sometimes everything just seems to come together. And these last few weeks, I have been working and talking over and over about the vibratory quality of vowel sounds, the resonance, the pronunciation, the physiological setup of the vowel sounds that we use when we're vocalizing, and really across the board. So, vowel sounds when we're vocal toning, when we're working in, vocal sound healing to create a richer, more resonant sound, which affects the whole body in so many ways. So, vowel sounds in my vocal coaching work has been really about how to make simple adjustments of the tongue, sometimes just a millimeter forward or back, and how this can really catapult the sound into a shining, brilliant resonance and therefore projection, because it's all about the resonance for projection. And usually it's about the tongue being in that more forward position. And when it isn't, it can leave the sound feeling dull, and often the vocalist is coming to me and saying, why is this phrase so hard? Why am I pushing? Why is this not working? Why am I not hearing this? And it's usually because the tongue position in the vowel is just not quite in the right place. And it all comes down to the vowels, because the vowels are really carrying that sound. And of course, consonants are important, but the vowels are, the sound is coming through that open space. So you're working with pure vowels. We're often using the mind to think the vowel sound whilst keeping the mouth fairly neutral and in that optimum position for sounding. And, this is a really big topic, because it's feeling that we can keep the mouth in that acoustic space setup that's optimum for sounding, and not change it too much just because we're changing the vowel. And this is a whole other world of working, that you're actually keeping the mouth inside, at least, fairly consistent whilst changing the vowel. But when we change the vowel, if we go from E to R, for example, they sound like two very separate sounds. But we don't need to make the space change that much. E, R. It's actually done with with the mind as well. So we get into this whole other area. So, when the tongue is in a high E position, so the tip is forward behind the bottom teeth, the sides are sort of sitting up in the mouth. So it's almost like this feeling of regurgitating your tongue forward and then just setting it back, and we keep it in that position. And then we change the vowel with the mind. So if I go from E and I keep my tongue in that forward position and I try to say R, very likely that the tongue will want to pull back, but I keep it forward, E, and I use my mind to say R whilst my tongue is forward in that E position. E, R. And the tongue will change, but it's going to affect very subtle musculature in the tongue, which creates enough of a change to form the vowel that you're trying to create, but without compromising the space and the setup. And the drastic and positive effect that this can have on the sound quality and the resonance is absolutely amazing. And that's what has been brought home to me in the last few weeks, working with people very specifically with this work. And I'm blessed because I have lots of clients that are really happy to put the work in with that, happy to go, okay, Alexandra, I've got it. I'm going to take it off now. I'll play with it. I'll work with it. I'll come back. And that's the thing, because I can't do that work for somebody. They have to go away, stand in front of the mirror, looking at their tongue, looking at what's going on, listening to the sound, recording the sound so they can hear the difference. But this really makes us understand how subtle the acoustic mouth space is, and how once it's set up with that relaxed jaw, space between the back teeth, forward tongue position, so I'm going to call it high tongue or E tongue, that we don't need to change it that much. It's like, being in a beautiful church with a dome and you're sounding all of these beautiful sounds. And because that dome, that space is set, the sounds are consistently coming back rich in harmonics and so on. If that dome was to change shape every time you changed your vowel sound, or changed every minute that you were sounding, you would get a completely different weird other sound. So we're really having to be aware of that space. See my last podcast on that because we talked about the acoustic space there. And even when it comes to sort of style and genre changes, we're not changing the mouth that much. We're really just changing how we use the vowel, depending on the genre, depending on what you're doing, and how that will affect the overall sound. So, in sound healing, we tend to work with very pure vowel sounds. But if you were going between opera, let's say, and musical theatre, it would just be small adjustments of how you place those vowels. It's uh, it's an imitation of the style rather than changing your whole acoustic space to fit the style. It's not that. And then working with vowel sounds in sort of genre like mantra, for example, or your Sanskrit practice, and really taking the time here to be accurate in the production of the sound, the vowel, the consonant, the tongue position, the contact in the mouth as you make these different sounds, and how this not only affects the sound and the resonance of your voice, but this is working on a deeper energetic level because we have acupressure points in the mouth, and these are related to nadis or meridians, whichever um, background you're coming from, these energy lines in the body. So when we sound, the sound is coming from the vocal folds, and that makes a sort of sound, comes up into the throat, into the pharynx. And as we've said before, because of how you are shaped and formed, your voice will reverberate in a certain way, and that's why it's unique to you. Comes up into that space, it's resonating against the whole structure, it's into the mouth, and the movable structure is your tongue. So the tongue is literally deflecting sound in the mouth for resonance, for projection, for whatever it is you're working with, but also for these acupressure points in the mouth that form the starting point of the energy meridians throughout your body. So when you sound, yes, we've got the vagus nerve, yes, we've got all of the beautiful chemicals that are released in the body, the feel-good chemicals, all of that. But even on another level, we have this charging of these acupressure points in the mouth, which is sending ripples of energy throughout the whole system, physically and on the more subtle energy layers as well. So it's really that, when you're sounding, whatever your sound is, wherever you are in this journey, that's going to be happening. But we can become very specific, very accurate, working with the mouth, with the tongue, really working with how all of these muscles are conditioned and formed for that optimum sounding. And then this is affecting your entire body on a multitude of levels and layers. And so, in addition to all of that, I've been focusing on some of David Frawley's interpretation of primary Sanskrit vowels and the effects of these simple sounds on our body. Simple ah, e, oo. And his interpretation, not just his interpretation, the whole sort of Sanskrit Vedic interpretation of how these sounds affect matter in general. These sounds are the essence of consciousness from that tradition. And so, how the tongue position even allows us to get in touch with the energy of the elements, because the elements are so intertwined with that consciousness, that connection between consciousness, the unseen, and matter, the seen, and the elements are that point in between. And so, working from that Sanskrit tradition of the consciousness becoming form, becoming matter, working with the elements there, that the sounds in themselves, the vowel sounds in themselves, are related to the elements. And how we can feel that resonance of the element through the vocal sound and through the vowel. And the reason I've been looking into all of that the last couple of weeks is because I'm in the process of launching some new self-paced video courses, and they're coming out in the next couple of weeks. And one of them works with mantra. So I like to, in one of the courses, I'm exploring, different ways that vocal sound healers can work. And, there's so many ways and so many traditions and so many things. But mantra is such an important part of vocal sound healing work for the things I've just talked about with the Sanskrit and the importance of those sounds. And one of them works predominantly with mantra, and it brings our attention to the concept that in Sanskrit, all of the vowels, all of the consonants, they all have their own unique resonance. They all have their own vibration. They all have their own meaning. And in the Vedic tradition, it's understood that these sounds, in their immense simplicity, are what bring consciousness into matter, into form. And it's a big topic. If you're new here to this sound healing world and to this podcast, I appreciate it's a lot to get your head around, but it's not just me saying this. It's a lot of work in this field. And I'm just bringing the tip of the iceberg. But that these very simple vowel sounds that we're using all the time in our speech, and taking it even deeper if we're working with Sanskrit, so much more specific, that these very sounds that we make are forming our existence, because the power and the potency of each sound brings that existence into being. And with the Sanskrit alphabet, it's worth taking the time to really pronounce these correctly. Obviously, get into it first, but the more you work with it, take that time. It doesn't happen overnight, it's a lifetime study. But not just because of the acoustic power that we talked about and the effect on the body that I just mentioned with the meridians and so on, but also because these sounds are what allow our more subtle energy bodies, our energy in its purest form, to become physical. Literally what we manifest in our lives. So to bring that potent pure energy, like droplets of the purest energy medicine of consciousness into our existence, into this world that we see. So really bringing that pure power of the unseen into the world that we see through the sounds that we make, through these beautiful sounds that we make. And to work with something so fundamentally pure that via entrainment, we know about entrainment being a key principle of sound healing, that those pure sounds transform all of the clutter, all of the static, all of the misplaced energy that we have in our lives. And that's healing. That's the vocal sound healing. And it's, at a very deep level, it's this getting back to the Sanskrit sounds. So from the last few weeks, it's been brought home to me even more than usual how important it is to practice and work with the vowel sounds. Simple vowel sounds. Ah, e, o, oo. Playing with those sounds and how the vibration of your voice, sounding them, affects you. So you're using a simple vowel sound, simple practice to get to know you and to get to know your voice and to work with that regularly without anything else, without, as I said before, without genre, without anything, just simple sounds. You don't even have to worry about the Sanskrit sounds. That can come later, starting just with hum, with simple vowels. And if you're new to this work or you're new to this podcast, please start with some earlier episodes. Because I think with this type of episode, we're in the thick here of sort of the thickness of vibration, consciousness, resonance, all this sort of mind-blowing stuff that makes you just want to go and sit on top of a mountain and stay there. Mind you, that's probably quite hard work as well, isn't it? Doing that, focusing your mind for that long a time. But we're in the depths of it here. So, I've said this before and I say it again, this podcast operates from the perspective that everything that appears solid is actually a mass of vibrating particles. Science tells us this. Quantum biology is confirming that we are 98% water molecules if you lined up all those water molecules. And of course, molecules contain all that space as well. And quantum biology is beginning to explain how our body interacts with sound and light, and that we are sound and light. And for me, my mission has always been about bridging that sort of those esoteric, these sort of ancient concepts and the present time. How can we bring all of that ancient wisdom and knowledge and understanding about energy, about who we are, about why we're here, about all of that? How can we bring all of that into the present moment and make it accessible? The Sanskrit sounds, the mantras, and the rest, energy work, energy healing, how the body works energetically, what that means, how that translates to daily life, how to make that relevant for someone who really doesn't know anything about it at all. I always think about that. It's very easy, isn't it? I've been doing this a long time and not as long as some people even, but it's very easy to sort of have realizations and then I think everyone sees the world from that place. And of course, no, we all see the world from a different place. I'm lucky that a lot of the people I work with and know see the world from a similar perspective that I do. But if I have a new client that's never worked with energy before, but just knows they need to be here and working with me, how do I translate it for them without taking away the fundamental power of what I'm doing? And I think it's just about, for me, trying to look at what's really there. And that's why I'm lucky enough to work with the voice, because what I'm trying, I suppose, to communicate here is that in my work as a vocal coach, just simply working with the vowels and the voice and trying to get the voice, help someone's voice to project, or, help someone's sound to become a little richer, a little more resonant. I'm working with a concept there that I would still be working with if I'm sitting with my mantra and my Sanskrit sounds and I'm looking at resonance and harmonics and all of these things. My job allows me to look at both sides of the scale, from the absolute present moment, someone who, I said, might not have any idea about energy, but just coming for a voice coaching session, to somebody who's coming because they understand these other concepts around energy and vowels. And the two stand side by side. And for me, it's making sense of all of that. And if we can allow our minds to expand and see things for what they really are, especially as science is backing up so much of that, classic physics is backing up that stuff. And then, the quantum biology and physics is really showing us now the workings of the universe. It's backing up all of the sacred geometry, all of the things that we've known in that healing world for so long is coming into play. And, when we can really conceive of all of that, we can be fully present, fully embodied in this physical world, not looking to bypass it to find something spiritual, that actually we are here in it now, living it, living the energy, living the consciousness, speaking the vowel sounds, our intention behind what we say, all of these things. If we can fully sit in this present moment with our sound, then we are here. we are being spiritual. We are being energy minded. We are being present. And then we can truly understand this experience that we're having here and love it and find joy in it and find creativity and play and to live that consciousness without fear, without all the fear that is imposed on us in this physical world. We can actually see around that and still find our center with all of that. And I love the work of Jessica Maguire, wonderful nervous system specialist and teacher now. And she talks about the power of intention and how when we link emotional and cognitive intention, people heal because it fuels neuroplasticity. And this is how the neural pathways are formed. This is how our body, our mind, everything changes, because when we link that intention with a desire within us, that intention to heal becomes so much more powerful, because we start to create new neural pathways. That's neuroplasticity. And in sound healing, working with intention is key. And I really like, when I work with people, I really like to pinpoint specific intentions for the session, because I think it creates awareness for the person, through the healing. It creates self-agency. So they are in the driver's seat of the way they want the work to go, what they need for their life, looking after a chat, sort of looking at the bigger picture. How can we find something today that will just help us move through, even a step through this? And because of that, because they set that intention, via neuroplasticity, as Jessica Maguire says, it creates change, it creates healing. So Jessica Maguire is also a physiotherapist. She studied neuroscience, physiotherapy, and now the nervous system. So she's working on all of those levels. And I don't like to oversimplify energy work because, for sure, there is another energetic and intuitive language and interplay happening through our healing sessions. And we're always learning and developing that. And there is another layer of wonder that goes on in healing sessions. The way the energy moves, the things that happen, the things that people feel when they're on the therapy table, the things that I sense, the worlds I've been taken to within one session of working with someone in a healing session. But there is a lot of grounded information and research that we can use to create lasting change with our clients if we understand how the body and the mind work together. And even more than that, if we can understand how all the body systems work together, from the physical body to the most subtle energetic. Because the body is energy in physical form. It's energy, it's just more dense. And when we understand how it interfaces with its many systems, physical and subtle, then we understand the workings of energy better. So that veil comes down. And we feel empowered with our own health and how the body really works. And we should discount nothing because it's all connected. It's all connected. And once we understand the physical energy body, the nervous system, all of these things and how it relates to everything else, from the immune system to all of those things, we can take this understanding to the lesser known subtle bodies. We add the language of intuition and we really hone that language for ourselves. With all of that and our experience as energy workers or someone who's received energy work, we can supercharge that healing with that understanding from the physical to the energetic. So really understanding what's going on here in this physical body, all these incredible subtle processes from the meridians to the nervous system. And then when we really understand that, we're taking all of that into the subtle bodies and standing as a sound healer or an energy worker, wherever you're coming from with this, standing in somebody's energy field. They're lying on the therapy table, you're standing in their energy field and you have that awareness of all of it. Then something very powerful can happen because you are the connection between it all. That consciousness that you bring is the connection between it all. But it all starts with our own self-healing practice because we need to be regulated. We need to be balanced, especially as practitioners. We need to be balanced and regulated within ourselves so that we can offer fundamental co-regulation for our clients first, helping them at each session to find that sense of safety. It all starts there. You can't balance the nervous system when someone's not comfortable. And that, again, I'm talking from a practitioner perspective, but even for yourself, it's finding that sense of safety for yourself. Even if your practice, you do it 3 times a week for 20 minutes, 20 minutes of safety, 20 minutes of coming home, 20 minutes of working with yourself. And working with our voice, working with a simple vowel practice, comes back to those vowels. Working with that resonance within ourselves begins the journey of self-awareness and understanding. It begins it. There is so much, but it's going to be different for everybody on the inside. And, if you think, oh my God, no, I can't go to the inside, I can't face that world, fine, do it with your eyes open and send it out. And just notice it as an outward thing. It doesn't have to be meditative. You don't have to shut it down. You don't have to go within. Just doing the work will give you the information you need. And you might find if you are one of those people that doesn't want to go to the inner world yet, just start with the outer world. Just start sounding those vowels, those hums. Start with a simple chant. Be with it. Let it work its special weave of power within you. And then you might find that the inner world becomes more approachable as you start working with it. And as I said, the voice has been, science has shown us as well, that the research has shown us that the voice is healing on so many levels, from releasing the endorphins, helping us slow the heart rate, which helps us with the blood pressure, all of those things. But more now, more vagus nerve, nervous system, up-regulating, down-regulating, whatever you need, but it has to come from a practice. And the vowels offer us a container, a sort of sacred blueprint for vocal sound healing. Whether you're working with a client over their body, or whether you're sitting with them sounding one-to-one or in a group, whatever you're doing, if you work with as a vocal coach for singing, for voice rehab, whatever you're doing, the vowels give us a container. And that's what this podcast is about, really. It was my realization that whether I was working with a teenager vocal coaching at school, well, I do that one day a week, or whether I working with a sound healing session or whatever I was doing, working with a group, the vowels were the common denominator. With or without the energy awareness, they are the container, they bring the energy. And the pure vowels are key to our realization of our sound, the fundamental relationship we have with ourselves and our voice as a vibrational tool on whatever level or realm you're working with. Because simple vowel sounds are what we all have in common. Even in our everyday speech, which we take for granted, we don't think about each sound, but they are the vehicle for the work, and they meet us here in that physical level of speech, sound and speech. We all have this in common, but they take us all the way through to the ancient, to the subtle. And then that brings us into concepts like the four realms of speech. And we go all the way into deep conscious awareness, into the essence of that energy of who we are. And I'm very excited because the next podcast, episode 17, will go into more detail about these four realms of speech. And I'll be talking to the lovely Lucia Guirin. She's a fellow sound healing practitioner and trainer and a friend of mine. And I'm so excited to share her work with you because she has the most beautiful way of explaining the power of Sanskrit practice and how this interweaves with everything that we are. So look out for the next episode because she'll be with us. And just something about those vowels, in sort of a practical sense. I was running a workshop the other week, and one of the participants asked me what I meant by the vowel sounds, because we were working with the e, r, or oo sounds, and she said, "Well, they're not vowels." And I probably looked very puzzled, and then realised, of course, but in English we talk about the vowels being a, e, I, o, u. But we're looking at the vowels in a much wider international, spiritual, linguistic sense. So if we just look at the definition of a vowel, it's a sound that's made with an open vocal tract, allowing air, and therefore sound, to flow freely, unlike consonants, which involve blocking the airflow with your tongue, your teeth, your lips, and so on to create that resistance. And we have different vowel sounds and different levels of openness and closure within those vowels, depending on your language. So, the vowel sounds in England and English are different from the vowel sounds in Italian, for example. The Italian vowel sounds are much more pure, closer to that we'd work with voice. So when we work with vocal production, in any way, we're working primarily with those open vowels without the diphthongs, unless we're working specifically with the diphthongs. And this is, from an international sense, so looking at the IPA, for example, the International Phonetic Alphabet, There are so many open sounds that we can make, but we're choosing these as a sort of this e, or oo as a sort of common denominator for people across the board from all languages and so on. A diphthong is when we have more vowel sounds in the words that's related to one vowel sound or even consonants. And this occurs a lot in English, which is why it can be a very difficult language to sing in. So, for example, if we have a word like over, oh, the O sound is not just O, one sound, it's oh. There's a whole journey through a sound, and that's the diphthong. And it really muddies the sort of purity of the sound. And it makes vocalizing on sounds a completely different experience because the acoustic space is moving for just one sound instead of holding a more fixed space for that one sound. So if I just say oh, or I say oh, the oh is pure, the oh is a whole journey of sound. In my online vocal conditioning and technique sessions, which happen, you can drop in on a Wednesday for those. I ask participants to sound through a song with just the vowels, so to take the consonants away. And then when we get to the words with the diphthongs, we have to manage how we sound them because suddenly you've got all these other sounds in the space. And we need to say on the most open part of the vowel first and just close the diphthong at the end of the word before the next word starts. So it's a bit complicated. We don't need to worry about it now, but I just wanted to touch on that. But if I'm singing, for example, the word fly, which actually doesn't have any vowels in it, if you look at it, F-L-Y, I need to focus on the R sound. Fly, fly, because that's where the sound is going to come through. If I sing fly, I've got this sound. And depending on the genre, you might manage the diphthong differently. But let's just take that to the Sanskrit, because in the Sanskrit, the diphthongs are really interesting. This is where we can create a real sense of audible harmonics between the vowel change. And as we know, harmonics, and especially audible harmonics or overtones, are very magical in healing, and they can occur at special times during the healing process, even when you're not necessarily trying to make them. I should just say here with harmonics are always present in the sound in varying degrees, and there are other sounds that we're not used to hearing. They're actually what give a sound they're what define a sound. But in sound healing, we look for sounds that are rich in harmonics because these other sounds are mathematically related to the fundamental sound that you're sounding. So there's other stuff going on in the energy there, in the vibration, in the frequency. In the Sanskrit, when we really feel into the change of the Sanskrit diphthong, I'll talk to you about those in a second. There's almost a little spark that occurs. And that's what I mean about playing and meditating with these sounds, really finding those things for yourself. A little note here, because when talking about that spark, that's something, energy movement in the diphthong. Jonathan Goldman, in his book Healing Sounds, he talks about his visit to Palenque in Mexico, where the ancient Maya had built a city, and it resembled cities of ancient Egypt. And he and his party were shown this underground area of the city, and where tourists can't go. And their guide switched off the flashlight, and the whole group were completely immersed in darkness, completely pitch black, he said. And the guide urged Jonathan to do his harmonic toning that he does. And he directed him into a certain area and said, do the toning here, do the sound here. So he would have worked with certain vowel sounds and manipulated the acoustic space, and that relates to the diphthongs. It creates formants and harmonics, and everybody observed in the darkness this light being created through the sound. And he said it wasn't, that it was just him that saw it. The group saw it. They said they couldn't miss it. It was pitch black. And then as he sounded these harmonics, this light started to come. And he said they could begin to see the form of people, in the group in the darkness. That's how much light there was. Not like a flashlight, but like something just very subtle light just from these sounds. And the guide knew this because I think he took them specifically to this place, probably where the resonance and the acoustic of the building, of the place they were, was very special for this. And he took them there. But when we work with these compound vowels in Sanskrit, this is the diphthongs, we can really feel into the change of that vowel. And you'll find anyway, when you play with vowel sounds, you might get these little whistly overtones, and that's good. That means you're really starting to work with the harmonics. And when you sense that change in the sound, that's the spark. It's like an electric current, something being created far beyond our understanding right now in this world. But it's there. So you can play with this A, A, I, E, I, O on different notes, and just play with that point where the vowel changes. There's something different. Even hearing that there's a little sound. And yeah, just finding that, getting to play with it, have some fun with it, feel the change point. You might hear a little harmonic, but what does it feel like in your mouth? What does that change feel like physiologically? It's like when you do a stretch or something in yoga, you're changing your mouth space. You're working with all of those different points in the mouth, whether it's the acupressure points, whether it's the points where you articulate the sounds, and something happens. And it's far greater than just sounding vowels or rattling off speech or even just singing a song. You're working with that, the building blocks of the sound that you use every day in your speech and whatever else you do. And especially if you're working in healing voice, this is a must. We have to start to really understand these sounds. And it's not about singing the best, sounding the loudest. It's about finding that play in your voice, that authenticity in your voice, that playing with your own physiology within your voice. Because when you move your tongue and your jaw and the sound and the space, only you have that physiology to those degrees of those measurements. It's purely unique to you. So explore it. It's not about singing, it's about sound. And it's really about finding that richness of sound. So it's not blasting it or pushing it. It's how resonant can it be? It's almost more internal. So, you see this world of vowels is vast, and we can tap into that vastness with a simple practice and let it take you further and explore this sonic sea of consciousness that we are living in, this world of vibration. Everything is vibrating, everything has a frequency. How do you fit into that? If you're new to this, start with simple vowels. If you're already working in vocal sound healing, keep working with those vowels. Bring it into your practice. Take it further. Do join my community, the membership community, Holistic Voice membership. Details on the website. We have a Voice for Wellbeing session on a Monday and a Friday where we work with vowels, meditative practices, mantra, chant, all these things to really, embrace vocal sound healing. You get replays sent to your inbox after every session. And we also have a vocal conditioning class in that as well on a Wednesday lunchtime. So you get 3 classes a week. A great way of really embracing this vocal sound healing. And of course, you're doing it all in the privacy of your own home. So even if you are on a live call, you're muted. So you're doing it for yourself. And if you don't want to be on the live call, you get the replay. And it's a good way of having someone guide you through it. And there's a lovely sense of community of sounding together, even if though we can't hear each other. And this is across timelines and across continents. I've got people from all around the world in the membership. So it's just a lovely thing to join with people that have the same interests. And if you want to take this further, if you want to learn the rudiments of it further, look into my new courses that I mentioned, the self-paced video courses. They'll be out over the next couple of weeks. Very exciting. And there's something there for complete beginner, for intermediate, for more advanced, and it will help you with setting up your voice, your acoustic space, feeling into the sound, what to watch for, how to use the breath with the sound, the vowels, all sorts of things. It's all going to be in those courses. We're working with some toning, some mantra, some chants, some deeper vocal sound healing practices. It's all there. So do check those out. And if you want to keep in touch for those launches, and there's lots of things coming up over the summer, lots of events and things, do pop onto the website, just pop your details in and we'll send you a newsletter. So it's always good to keep in touch. But I think that's what I have to say today about the vowels and their healing resonance. And we will take this further next episode with the lovely Lucia joining us. So do check in for that. But it's been my pleasure, folks, to share voice healing from my perspective, from my little corner of the world, and sending it out to you wherever you are. Thank you for joining. Don't forget, like and subscribe if you're on YouTube and Spotify. If you think someone might be interested in the episode, send them the link. You never know, it might be helpful for somebody on their own healing journey. But I look forward to seeing you next time and wish you a lovely rest of your day. So thank you for joining. Take good care. It's been my pleasure. And I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.